guys, it's me. Yes, it's Lily back again with Talk Crypto to Me, the show which today is only talking about Bitcoin, nothing else. Yeah, because I'm chatting to Robert Breedlove, who is crazy interesting. I mean, the stuff we're talking about is next level. It's all about the psychology behind investing. The fact that we mimic other people's behavior so much that it prevents us from seeing things from a bigger picture. It stops us from making them investments, to actually questioning ourselves, what is money? Why do we try and earn money? Why are we spending money? Who controls the money that we hold? This is a crazy interview. I hope you enjoy it. Let's chat to Robert. In my personal opinion, when people ask me what is probably the best thing to invest in, I always say, do you want to go for something that's stable and actually has a great usage? Bitcoin. The rest you really need to research and understand a lot more about. So yeah, it's fine to concentrate on Bitcoin.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't, we can go into that as much as you like or as little as you like, but my evolving view, I'll just say it like this. We always treat every gun as if it's loaded. Have you
Okay.
ever heard of this? It's
Yeah.
like it's a useful fiction. It's not that we actually believe every gun is loaded, but maybe it's better we just treat them that way to protect ourselves.
Okay. So you.
I kind of think that all like calling all other crypto projects a scam is a similar useful fiction.
Okay. Okay. You'd go that far to sort of say that you wouldn't actually back any other altcoins.
Oh no, I 100% won't hold any of them.
Okay. So you're not.
But
You
what
have
I'm what I'm saying is this: is that okay? I'm going to reserve the humility to say that I don't know enough about everything to say there might be some useful project out there or need for a token that I haven't figured out, some use case, some market proven use case that I haven't figured out. But for most people, I think it's useful for them to just adopt the useful fiction of treating it all like scams and just focusing on Bitcoin because there's enough to learn there. There's an ability to actually have sound savings, which is not something we're accustomed to having in the modern world. And there's just a lot of truth and honesty and integrity, I think, surrounding the project because it's the only project where nothing is hidden.
Yeah.
There's nothing hidden about it. There's no asymmetry. There's no informational asymmetry.
Do you find
Everyone's
that
just
with the other
playing.
projects? Do you find that with like a lot of the altcoins that there's things that they're not quite saying?
Well, they by definition, whether they're saying it or not, there's by definition an asymmetry, and that there's people working on this project to change its consensus rules, to change its marketing, its network mechanics, all of these things that are established and known for Bitcoin. There are small teams working to change these facets of other projects. So there's an inherent information asymmetry. I'm not saying necessarily that it's nefarious, although I would also say there's a lot of bullshit, a lot of
Yeah.
scams, a lot of nefarious players in the space. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist as well, but there's an inherent asymmetry just in the nature of it being an early stage project that you don't have in something like Bitcoin, which is more like this universally transparent internet protocol.
Yeah.
Would be
So it's
my
like
point.
having like a tree. Like Bitcoin is that trunk of the tree which has all this knowledge, has everything built in, and then all the branches coming off are all sort of sprouting out of this. But actually, the main resilient part of it is always that trunk. It's always Bitcoin.
Yeah, and there's a big chance that all of those branches sprouting out of the main trunk will die.
Which
I
is
think there's a
possible
very
in the natural world. That's possible as well.
yeah, I think there's a very again, the longer I'm around the space, the more I tend to believe there's a higher probability of everything failing at layer one. Universal consolidation at layer one. Now, maybe on top of Lightning Network or other protocols that are built on top of Bitcoin, you'll get some of this experimentation and liquid venture capital, whatever you want to call this space. I think a lot of that makes sense at that layer, but distributed consensus seems to have one real solution, and that is global base money, non-state base money. And I think that's what Bitcoin is solved for. And I just see everything else getting built on top of that rather than adjacent to that.
Yes, there's the less usage as it goes as you go down the lines. People really just seeing this as an amazing space to be in. People want to get involved, but they also want to create their own coins, and a lot of that doesn't really hold validity in the real world.
Yeah. So and this is where you can take a page out of the history of money, and you'll notice real quick, if you study the history of money, everyone that has ever found the ability to print money, I'll say found, it's also like been taken and coerced and all these different things, but anyone who's established for themselves an ability to print money has wholly given in to the temptation to print money. It's like this irresistible human urge.
Of course, yeah.
And we all know, if you just stop with yourself in one moment and really consider, if you had a money printing machine on your desk, like, of course you would use that thing,
of course.
right? You would run it until it broke, as would every human. So it's somewhat intuitive, I think, in that respect. But this latest manifestation of people starting shit coins and projects and, blah, 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 I think it's just another, it's that impulse basically writ in the modern age. So the same reason we have central banks,
and they
which arrogate themselves the legal monopoly to print money ad infinitum and steal from everyone else. It's that same impulse that's behind a lot of these shitcoin projects.
And one, it's just interesting because we call them shit coins, which should really be red flags for most people anyway. I think as soon as you say that, it's like, is this a good concept? But also, it's interesting you talk about, the central banks, because your background is actually hedge funds originally, correct?
Yeah, so accounting, I have a master's degree in accounting and finance. I was a career CFO, and then I got into the hedge fund space in 2017 and operated a fund for a number of years. That's correct.
So how did you then go from, being in this background? Because I speak to bankers now and I say that I'm involved in crypto, and there's still, some of them are still quite skeptical. They still don't like this idea of moving away from the central bank. So how did you end up then getting so much into Bitcoin?
Well, the first thing you have to do is not say you're in crypto, say you're in Bitcoin.
Okay,
then you'll get more credence for yourself. So I've told this story before, but I went down the central banking rabbit hole before Bitcoin ever existed. So I think this is like between the years 2004, 2005. I'd read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin.
Okay.
And that's a big book, but there's an abridged version called Dishonest Money by Joseph Plummer or Plummer. You can look this up on Amazon. It's a 100-page read. It will give you the highlights of everything that's wrong with central banking, which is basically everything.
So you were sat there reading this book thinking, this is just incorrect. Does not sound right.
Yeah. So there's a long kind of story behind this where I've just been reading a lot throughout my life and just trying to satisfy my own curiosity. But economics was always opaque to me. It was very mysterious. I couldn't understand the business world and economics, like how this whole thing worked. Mm-hmm. But when I, again, found central banking, it illuminated a lot of things for me. It's like, oh, this is what's wrong. This is why things keep breaking down. The money keeps getting corrupted and broken, essentially. Mm-hmm. But again, at this time, this was before Bitcoin. So
there was no solution. There was no alternative.
I made this, discovery for myself. I even shared it with people that I knew, but I also encountered this insurmountable frustration. I was like, what can be done about this? It's such an entrenched, before Bitcoin, what could you do about central banking? There's basically nothing, right? You just grin and bear it.
Like for many years, it just people would be frustrated, people wouldn't like it, but people had nowhere else to turn.
Yeah, unless you want to bury physical gold in your backyard and do all your transactions in physical gold, you didn't have a lot of options really. So anyways, that was a very important part of my understanding of the world. And then when I finally, I heard of Bitcoin, but I didn't understand that Bitcoin was the solution to this problem until many years after hearing about it.
Okay.
And once I put those two
pieces... Who told you about Bitcoin? Was it through friends?
Well, I had heard about it on the news, I think, when the 2000...
How early was this in the game? We were talking
2014. Okay. It had this price run from... Bitcoin went from $200 to break $1,100, I think, in late 2014.
So everyone starts speaking about something as soon as people start earning.
Yeah, I heard about it at the time, but I still had not figured it out. It was kind of ironically in 2017 when crypto was going haywire, markets were exploding. I started studying Ethereum actually. And when I found the concept of smart contracts, this idea of automating commercial relationships.
Yeah.
So basically what the whole finance industry is, it's connecting buyers and sellers.
Hmm.
But it's providing, what we call the financial industry just is that. It is this intermediary function that
Transaction between, yeah, people spending money.
And the analogy for a smart contract that landed with me, this is from Nick Szabo's work, was the vending machine. So when you, as a buyer at a vending machine, the vending machine or the owners of the vending machine or the seller, you're basically inputting what you want, all right, X9 or whatever keys you're punching in to indicate to the vending machine, hey, I want this bottle of water.
Yeah.
Designated in X9. And then the vending machine runs a smart contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's automating that commercial relationship saying, did the buyer select X9? Did the buyer input 75 cents? If so, then release bottle of water or release X9. So that is a smart contract. It's just connecting buyers and sellers and making sure certain conditions are satisfied before the sale is complete. And so my light bulb here was, holy shit, 20%, I think, I have to check my numbers on this, 15 to 20% of US GDP is the finance industry. So 15% of our net output is this intermediary layer that smart contracts and other related software could just totally eliminate.
Yeah.
So that's when I became very interested in the space and then started investing heavily. And then I always say this, but I think this is true for people, where your money goes, your mind follows.
Very true.
So once I had skin in the game, I really started to pay close attention and, started going deep on monetary history. I think Saifedean's book, The Bitcoin Standard, is still the best read for most people on this topic. It connects Austrian economics, central banking, and layers in Bitcoin at the end. The title's kind of deceiving because it doesn't even mention Bitcoin until probably 3/4 of the way through the book. And so, yeah, that was my journey into the rabbit hole. Is I kind of had this foundation, like I knew central banking was a real problem, which is an area a lot of people don't have knowledge of. That's part of their journey down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, but I already had that branch explored for myself. I just needed to connect that Bitcoin was the solution to this whole mess. And
that is the big issue. A lot of people don't actually see the big picture. A lot of people, they just earn money, they spend money, they never actually think about a financial system. Everything which is going on in the background to a lot of people has no importance. They're just happy to go by. But now we've actually realized there is this option, there's something else. This is really helping people to realize there is something wrong and it needs to be fixed.
This is why people have to ask themselves, what is money? We think
exactly.
about
and that's what you're doing.
Money all the time, right? How am I going to get more money? How much money do I have? How much money is this going to cost? Planning, negotiating, calculating, we do it all the time. But how often do we stop and take off the glasses and actually look at the glasses through which we're examining the world?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get people to do on the
I think that is the hardest thing. I still have friends and a lot of people still question so much about Bitcoin. People really don't see it as its usage, how it's going to change the world. But I think the more people actually get involved, as you say, once you start investing, once you start learning, it snowballs from there.
Yeah, this is what the best thing about Bitcoin actually is, that it's like this inexhaustible teacher. When you get into the history of money, I think you start to see the history of money as really entangled with the history of the world. It's the most important incentive system any of us use. And so as the nature of that incentive system has changed, so has human history changed. And if you're the kind of person that likes to learn and study and think about profound topics and big ideas, I think Bitcoin's the right place for you, because this rabbit hole is bottomless, as we say.
It's interesting you even speak about books as well, because I have to say most people I interview say about YouTube, a lot of digital ways of learning, but actually hearing someone say read a book is quite refreshing.
Well, call me old school. I like to read books. I do read Kindle now a lot too, though, so I have somewhat
digital way, but still a way. So that's a way you would say to people to educate themselves is read books.
No, look, I'm not prescriptive about it. It's my personal preference.
Hmm.
I like to read more. I find I can read faster. You know, I took speed reading, which you can do this if you Google how to speed read Tim Ferriss. I think he has a little 30-minute course for free online.
On how to
And
read quickly.
yeah, it takes you half an hour to learn and it will change your life. You can, depending on the density of what you're reading, I can turn up my reading speed now extremely high if it's not dense material. But if I'm reading like an older, difficult book, well, I have to slow down a lot, obviously, to take it in.
Hmm.
But the fact that I can throttle it up or throttle it down gives me a lot more speed when I'm dealing with content. Whereas if I'm watching audio or video, I feel there's something in the back of my mind that's always bored on audio video, unless
Yeah.
it's some really compelling, typically a movie or some structured lecture. But with reading, you don't get that background noise because you can just read faster. Like
Yeah.
if you have that blankness in the back, like, well, just turn up your reading speed, and that it dials up your speed.
And it's
So
taking what you want.
for me, I'll say that's my preference
Yeah.
because reading, I just grew up with it. I'm an old millennial, so I'm a digital native, but I remember a time before digital tech.
No, I find
Um,
that really interesting because honestly, most people I interview are like, go on YouTube, do this. So it's actually refreshing for someone to say, you know what, sit down, read a book, actually get involved in it, understand what you're investing in, why you're investing it. I think that's the problem.
yes.
The reason a lot of people don't want to invest is because they just don't get it.
Yeah, you need to ask the big questions. And ultimately, what you buy and own, in my opinion, should be a reflection of what you understand. What is your conviction in these assets, in these positions, in the integrity of your ownership? Because if you don't have that conviction, once the market moves against you, either way, you're going to be shaken out of that position, right? You're going to get emotional and panic sell. So there's this idea of being steadfast to your own outlook in the world. Like your portfolio construction should reflect your worldview, if that makes sense. And I think that gives you just the right way to deal with the world. I would also say that if you talk to more Bitcoiners, you'll probably find more people that like to read books.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I mean, I do agree. I just think a lot of people in the digital age definitely always push towards more YouTube, things like that. But
yes.
don't worry, people have also said books, but it's just quite refreshing to hear
And
that.
I don't want to denigrate those people at all. I'm very grateful for them. Like that's what gives me an audience on my show. So I think I have the best job in the world because I now get to go do what I enjoy, which is to read some old esoteric book, trying to peel back the layers on some big idea or conundrum that I can't figure out. Typically several books, right, on that topic. And then I get to think about it and reflect on it and write about it and then ultimately talk about it with other really smart people. And hopefully, and knock on wood, we've been successful so far. We're adding value to people's lives. People watch this stuff and they're like, man, I had never thought about it that way. You really opened my mind. It changed my business. It changed my family's finances, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I get to do all that for a living. It's like, what? It's the thing I want to do that I already enjoy doing. But just by virtue that more people prefer audio visual communication to reading, I get to play that intermediary layer. And it's great. I love what I do. I get to add value to people's lives and, create value in the process.
What's the
So,
best thing you feel like you've been learning at the moment about the whole central bank system and Bitcoin?
oh man.
Putting you on the spot there.
Well, it goes beyond. You get outside of money and central banking, it becomes quite psychological. Ultimately, you start evaluating humans, like how do we actually make decisions? How do we respond to incentives? What are the economic considerations that determine how we shape ourselves individually, and how we put ourselves together in civilizations collectively? The most interesting thing, I'll share this one with you. This is a book called Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World. It's written by Rene Girard back in I think the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
This is Peter Thiel's favorite book.
Okay.
And we're going to be doing a series on this book soon, but I'll try to summarize its thesis. as best I can.
Try your best. I really have put you on the spot here. So
It's going to blow your mind, though. I think it
okay.
blows my mind every time I think about it. It unpacks this concept called mimesis.
Okay.
So mimesis is a term where we get words like mime and imitate, mimetics. You probably heard of mimetics online. So it's all this imitating, this imitative behavior. And there's this old quote by Aristotle that mankind, I'm going to paraphrase this, mankind is different than all the other animals in his ability to imitate. So this book by Girard goes through the nature of human mimesis and basically makes the case that everything we're doing right now, I have a certain catalog of subpersonalities in my experience from all the people I've interacted with across history, or TV shows I've watched, books I've read. And you run these little programs that we just have a lot of mirroring of other personalities that we then run as a composite in our own personality. And then we're then an input into someone else's personality. So all human communication, we're just mirroring one another all the time.
Okay.
And so it's that thesis, but then it describes how it leads to ritual, the founding of social institution. It culminates in mimetic crisis. It's kind of like a anthropological theory of everything described in mimesis. But how does that relate?
We definitely live in an environment now where everyone does try and mirror each other a lot. I mean, when you have things like Instagram, all this sort of stuff, we're constantly bombarded with trying to imitate other people more so than ever before.
Yeah, if anything, that process has been accelerated by social media and digital technology. So that for me is an area where you wouldn't typically associate money with that. It's like, how did you get to anthropological? But when you get into, you're like asking, why do these people adopt the same money that these people adopt? You see there's competitive considerations and you see there's psychological considerations. So again, it's a rabbit hole, but.
Do you really feel like the more we understand people's reasoning for doing things, like the psychological impact of it, the more we'll be able to, change the system? It's more about people's mindsets and how they adopt things?
Well, I think that there are perspectival shifts we can take with a broader worldview, right? We can reinterpret the same data in brand new ways. And what do I mean by that? Okay. For thousands of years, people saw the sun rising and we thought, oh, there's the sun rotating around the earth, right? Just like it does every single day. It's perfect data, matches my story. There's no issues at all. Then along comes this pain in the ass guy named Copernicus. And he says, actually, guys, the sun's in the middle. We're revolving around the sun. And so in that instant of Copernican revolution, we reinterpret all of this data that we thought we had perfect. And we see it from a new perspective and realize, oh my goodness, we've been profoundly wrong. And we see the same data with a different story wrapped around it. And it totally changes our worldview. So I'm hoping on the show, we can give you some of these perspectival shifts. Like, it's not good guys and bad guys. Like, turns out everyone's kind of mirroring one another and we're all responding to choices. And we all have different incentives that might bend us, towards morality or away from morality. And there's psychological implications. And so I'm just hoping to contribute to that higher self-awareness and, trusting that the world would sort itself out better.
Yeah, like why we choose to do things, why we actually don't question things as much. Probably when we do grow older, we don't actually think about why we do things. We just have a very one-dimensional way of thinking.
And this is kind of a process of maturity too. Like if you're a young adult, I'm a young adult. I've made a lot of mistakes and I tend to have to learn the hard way, kind of bang my head into the wall and really feel the pain for a while before I learn to modify my behavior and get better in certain respects. Well, turns out we're collectively doing sort of the same thing. We've kind of meandered through the dark ages, the actual dark ages. Now I think we're going through the economic dark ages. And we're just learning how important it is to have, pure, honest money at the heart of human affairs. I think fixes a lot of problems.
Yeah, we're on the horizon really of this whole decentralized society, which is a complete game changer.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is foundational to the whole thing. And I would just again caution people,
Yeah.
really pull apart that word decentralized, actually. Like,
Okay.
because that's the key point, that every other crypto project
Yeah.
is a dino, as we like to joke,
Mm-hmm.
which is decentralized in name only,
Mm-hmm.
DINO. Bitcoin's the only truly decentralized crypto asset, so far as I can tell.
Okay.
And
Why are the others not why do you not consider them decentralized?
because there's either an individual or a group that can make decisions that the rest of the community are forced to abide by. So there's a centralized decision making apparatus in every project, and that's not true with Bitcoin. And it's not something you can engineer in a lab. You can't software engineer decentralization. Decentralization requires this idiosyncratic path of events that led to it. You know, the fact that Bitcoin was first,
Yeah.
the fact that it had this organic growth path, the fact that everything else has been a copy paste of Bitcoin, the fact that if you try to launch Bitcoin 2.0 today, there's already this, we all have this history and knowledge of Bitcoin 1.0. So you can't erase that, right?
No,
People,
you can't replicate something which, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's actually something which has its utility, has this ability to change the world. Don't try and replicate it or better it, because actually that's almost impossible.
yeah, and this point, this whole line of conversation is very important because it's a hard question to answer, especially in a little amount of time here. But I wrote a piece, The Number Zero in Bitcoin, 2 years ago to try and answer this question in depth. And it's my best attempt. So if you do like to read, you could go check out that piece to answer this question.
Yeah, and how about? I mean, obviously we're in a bear market right now, which you might not like the term. You probably don't enjoy me saying, but sort of where do you see things going from within the next year?
No, bear market's very fair. We're in US dollar terms, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, as it
Mm.
tends to do in its halving cycles, and now it's come down significantly. I think our local top was 69,000
Yeah.
6 or 8 months ago, maybe, and now we're down around 20,000. If the cycles hold, then I don't think we'd see a new Bitcoin all-time high until about 18 to 24 months after the halving, which would be, I think the next halving is May 2024. So this would be around, let's say, late 2025, early 2026.
So you
That
think
we,
things are going to stay relatively low until then?
well, that's if the cycles hold. But the other thing we saw this cycle is the Bitcoin top should have been much, much higher if it was commensurate with past cycles.
Mm-hmm.
I had a public prediction of $307,000 peak.
Okay, so you
Well,
were going high.
but Bitcoin petered out at 69.
Mm-hmm.
So, does that mean cycles broke down? Does that mean cycles are lower? I really am not sure. And then you add into that all of this macroeconomic uncertainty where the whole world's falling
Yes.
apart, basically, due to
I
government intervention. And if you trace what's wrong with the world, just if you follow that question back far enough, I think you'll find it's government intervention every single time. So there's a lot of uncertainty related to all of this. But the one thing, there's the old adage, there's two certainties in life: death and taxes. Well, we finally have the third certainty, which is 21 million Bitcoin, to hopefully deal with the taxes. At least the death is still a problem.
that still probably is going to happen. There's probably no solution for that in the near future, so we've got to accept that one.
Probably meant to be that way too. I think
I mean,
after
none of
we've
us
done our thing, we need to get out of the way, right?
Yeah, exactly. None of us really want to live. No, I don't think the society needs us to live forever either. There needs to be a new chapter for everything, and this really is the whole new chapter in terms of the banking system. And do you like sit there and what do you look at the charts as well? Or is that not something really you're concerned about? You just think about the future.
No, I've done enough of that in my past life as a fund manager to not ever want to do that again. I do follow the price. Like, even recently I've been holding dollars more. I don't sell Bitcoin for dollars, but the dollars that I have coming through my businesses, I've just been typically I would just convert that to BTC.
Yeah.
But lately I've been holding more USD position
Why is that?
because of all this uncertainty.
Okay.
And so indeed, now that Bitcoin's price has been breaking down, I'm converting some of that USD to BTC
So you would say it's
opportunistically.
a good time to buy right now, to get involved at the moment?
I think it's a good time to buy for me. Again, I'm not prescriptive for anyone
No,
out there,
no,
but
none of us are. No, I'm not saying
yeah,
that. But in general, if you're thinking about a time to maybe consider it, or at least start learning, this is a great curve to look at it and actually think about where you want to invest.
it's a good time to build knowledge and conviction in the bear market. And then again, that knowledge and conviction, in my opinion, should be reflected in what you buy.
Yeah.
So, listen,
But
learn,
just
research.
don't buy the random shit coins that no one really wants.
Don't do that. Yeah. Or, I mean, you could do that and then you're going to get hurt and you're going to learn the hard way.
Yes, exactly.
So,
we're trying to soften that blow. We're going to try and make it as easy as possible for people so you don't have to go down that route. Stick to Bitcoin and things could be a little bit more positive for them.
Yeah. One of the heights of intelligence, I think, is to learn through the pain of others rather than to have to learn through your own pain, as most of us do.
But you didn't go through this pain yourself, did you? No.
Oh, yes, I certainly did.
You did. Mm-hmm. So you were one of them. Because you said you started by looking into Ethereum. So was that one you were starting?
Yeah, when my fund first launched, we were multi-strategy crypto asset fund. So I learned, we had success and failures investing in the alternative crypto assets. But I've definitely learned, very firsthand experience and pain, what it's like to make money and lose money, and then learn and sharpen your focus. So
when you sit there and you watch the markets and you're like, oh God.
I'm not judging anyone that learns the hard way, because I am one of those people that learns the hard way. But I do hope the educational stuff that we're sharing helps some people not have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, I think it's just more saying to people that this is a real thing to take on board, to understand. And I think it's amazing what you're doing to actually educate people by looking at the past, look at all of the failures across history, not just present day, but all the things that's happened in the past and how we've learned from that, how we've adapted to where we are right now, which is this pinnacle point of changing the whole world, really.
You got it. Spot on.
See, you've taught me in this one session. You've explained to me the importance of doing this, because I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. They don't actually put value on any of this. They don't actually think about history. They just look at the future. They get caught up in the metaverse and all the things that could happen. And actually, really, it's reflecting. It's self-reflecting and also reflecting on what others have done.
It's absolutely right. And the deeper you engage in that self-reflection, and it can't just be yourself, right? We haven't been alive long enough to understand what's going on. You need to look and self-reflect into the lives of others through whatever means necessary. I prefer reading, whatever you prefer. The deeper you engage in that self-reflection, I think the more equipped you are to deal with the uncertain horizon of the future.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're worried, if you're concerned about anything you're doing right now, then actually look back and really be solid in the decisions you're making.
Yes.
Never going to be the wrong decision if you're really sure in how you're progressing and how you're doing something.
Well, I mean, you can be pretty sure about stuff and be wrong too. So I don't want to present that, but I'll say that, human beings, civilization has changed a lot, but individually we haven't changed too much. We're still animal in one respect, but we have this inner angel too, and we're kind of like wrestling between the two all the time, and hopefully trying to make our group organizations more a reflection of our inner angels rather than our inner demons. And I think incentives are the through line to that whole process. It's like, how do you make property really risky and expensive to violate, so you give people very sound store of their life energy, sound savings? Then you give people incentives to engage in long-term, productive, cooperative trading relationships that create wealth and social cohesion and peace, all these things we like.
We promote it to live that way.
Yeah, and then let's disincentivize and make expensive the violation of property and warfare and violence. And we've done a good job in a lot of these areas, right? The U.S. Constitution is a big leg up than ancient Egypt, Pharaoh, God kings. for instance.
Yeah.
But we've got a ways to go. And
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin is a big step of advancement in that sense.
That is the future. That is where we're all heading. So listen to Robert, listen to everything you have to say, because your podcasts are super interesting. So
Thank
I
you.
hope my audience can learn a lot from you in the future as well, because as I say, you're going to have such an impact as we are going into this new world. You are well and truly part of the foundations of creating this.
Well, I'm honored you would say that. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for your time. And I will definitely be constantly listening. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with everything. Thanks, Robert.
All
Bye.
right. Take care. Bye.